Hello everyone. So this video is on admissions and confessions, and this is part one of admissions and confession. This lecture is part of evidence law subject, which is now BSA, which is Bharatiya Sakshi Adhiniyam. Let's move forward with the discussion of admissions and confession. This will be a series of 2 3 lectures in which I will be discussing admissions and confession in a great detail, in a very good explanatory form, so that it's very clear to every one of you. It's one of the very important topic for evidence law, because admissions and confessions hold a very important place when it comes to evidences. So let's, without any further ado, let's start with our admissions and confession as a topic. We'll take with examples and everything. Let's start. Firstly, about what is an admission. Firstly, you need to understand about the concept of admissions. If you see admissions as a concept is a statement, a statement in oral, documentary, or electronic form suggesting an inference about any fact, an issue, or relevant fact. Basically, admissions is a kind of voluntarily any sort of statement, oral, documentary, or in electronic form, any statement which is given. You must be wondering as to why we are giving so much importance to such statement. Such statement is important because in admissions, what court do? Court draw inferences from these statements. Inferences from this statement basically means, because if you see, whenever any trial is going on, or if there is any civil suit, how the court will decide on any question? The court always asks for evidences. We all know that court asks for evidences. But what happens is that you cannot bring about the evidences for everything. But usually what happens is, there are certain admissions, or what we call statements, in the form of oral or any documentary or any electronic form, which can help to prove something prove something substantially before court. Substantially before court, I'll explain you what this means. Is a lot of people are confused as to what are admissions. Basically, if there is A party and B, there is a lawsuit between them both about a certain contract. Okay, so there's a lawsuit between them. If A can bring a digital copy of the contract before the court, in which B's signatures are there, because here in this case B is denying of any sort of contract. If there is signature of B on this particular document, what is this? This is basically giving an admission in the form of a documentary evidence which shows that B had signed it, and because otherwise it will be difficult to prove. So these evidences act as admissions before this court, and these prove substantially before the court. Substantially in the sense, these are the substantive evidences. These could be considered to be major evidences before the court. I'll explain you in further details as to how it usually happens before the like, if in a trial case, if you understand this fact, there is a if this was a civil suit, like in a criminal case, if you see, there is an example about A and B. A comes before the court. A admits that A was present at place X. X is a place where murder of B happened. What happened in this case? A is not saying that he murdered A. In this case, A is not saying he murdered B. But what he is saying, he is admitting to the fact. This statement which is given by him, that he was present, this is an admission before the court. This will be considered to be an admission before the court, that he was present there. how these admissions are used, why these admissions are very relevant for any sort of, because you see, one general principle which the follows is that why would any person, in this case if you see, why will A say that he was present? Because it is directly going against his whole case. If someone says that he was present on the murder, on the place where the murder happened, this is really going against that person. The admissions will further discuss when we'll deal with as we continue with our whole lecture. I'll also answer, will also deal about what are self harming and what are self serving. Self harming and self serving. Self serving basically means which is favorable to a party, and self harming is which is not favorable, which can implicate a person. If there is A and B, if A is accused of murder of B and B is saying that he was present at the place where the B's murder happened, because here as an it is an admission, because here A is not saying he murdered B, but he's just saying that he was present. So these are the admissions. This can be further used in the whole trial, in the whole suit, any civil suit by the court, to draw certain inferences, to understand that whether that person should be held liable for that case. These act as substantive evidences. We'll deal with substantive evidences as well as to what are they and everything. Substantive evidences, because court can this basically means court can fully rely on it. If A himself is admitting that he was present on that place, is there is a requirement for the party who is the representative of B to, like, B is represented by the prosecutor in this case, and A is represented by the defendant, because A is a defendant here, A is accused here. Do prosecutor now need to prove that was A present over there or not? Because he himself has admitted in his testimony that he was present there. So these act as admissions in the court of law. So let's move forward with our next. Can be oral. So these admissions can be oral, written, or through conduct, both self-serving or self-harming statements. I hope you understood about this. Let's move forward with our major topics. As I told you about the definition as well, it suggests inference about a fact and issue or relevant fact. Fact and issue and relevant facts. These admissions are basically telling us about, they're giving us some inferences about them. What this means is, let's take an example, again take an example to explain you what are facts and issue and relevant facts briefly. Fact and issue and relevant facts properly. If there is a fact and issues are the main questions, they are the main questions the judge needs to answer, judge must answer. What the judge needs to answer, like if there is any case like A as a murder case, as I told you, the last example I take, in like a criminal case, like in a murder trial case. So what is the fact and issue in this case? The fact and question is, did A cause the death of B by stabbing? This is fact and issue. This means that did A cause the death of B by stabbing? So all these will be fact and issue. This is the main question which the judge is required to answer. And the relevant facts are connected to the fact and issue. Relevant facts are these are basically not the direct facts in issue. These are not direct facts in issue. They basically are, they do not break or make the case. Like A caused the death of B by stabbing, what needs to be proved? That how A proved if A had to cause the death of B by, what will be facts and issue? Like was A these are basically about stabbing. These are the main question. Okay, so these are the surrounding facts in the sense that These are the circumstances, the surrounding facts, the prior details, or other evidences which are related to the dispute. So, what could be the relevant facts and issue for this? If you just imagine this, what will be relevant facts as to what will be this? If this is the main question, what will be the sub questions about it? Sub question can be: A bought a knife the day before the incident, or like A had quarreled with B recently. What it can prove? It can prove motive as a topic will not deal here in this class. I just want to explain you what are the relevant facts and facts in issue, as I told you. Because if you see how evidences are taken into consideration, you never get something explicitly, okay, cause a death by stabbing, or there should this can be proved if there is some eyewitnesses, or something. If there is no eyewitnesses or there is no direct evidences, then what happens is corroborative evidences, which are like, corroboration is like certain evidences which can support some fact and issue. These relevant facts, like was there a quarrel, A bought the knife, these can help to um, provide the corroboration. They provide certain evidences which can weaken the position or strengthen the position of the parties of the whole case. Let's admission can be, let's have a revision of that oral or documentary. I told you this can be oral as well as a documentary. We took the example of contract to explain documentary. Oral can be any admission, testimony given, as I told you, statement or conduct, including silence in certain contexts. What was the admissions is also can be what was the conduct of a person, what the statement has been given. Is can be self-serving, as I explained you, favorable to the maker, or self-harming, disfavoring the maker. Formal, it can be formal as well. Admissions can be formal, basically before the court, or it can be non-formal as well. Non-formal in the sense, what it means, non-formal in the sense, non-formal can be a communication between the parties, like A and B. uh, Basically, as I took the example of contract as a documentary evidence, if A can show to court a email in which B has, if there is a case between A and B in which there is a contract between them, in which A had to pay A had to pay B 10,000 rupees. If A can bring a receipt, A can bring a receipt which shows that A A had paid to B and B acknowledged it. B acknowledged it. If B acknowledged it, means B signed it. This is showed by the document in which B had signed it. If once B has signed it, can the B again tell that no, that if B has already signed it, can then B say that no, this will be literally admission. This will be admission against B. This whole signing will be taken as admission by B. Another is who can make these admissions. If you see section 18, parties to the proceeding like A and B, these are the direct parties of the proceeding. They can make the admissions. Agents of the party, if authorized, represented in a person in a representative character, interest trustee, executors. What it means is like, if you see this example, why these person, if you see this whole example, let me show you who can make, if you see, who can make these admissions. Because if you see, these admissions are so relevant because they are considered to be substantive evidences, like the main evidences. Because if something is admission is given in any oral or documentary form, it is taken as substantial evidences, and uske baad there is no requirement to give any other proof. So what the law requires is that these admissions should be from the parties who are very directly related to the dispute, directly related. So if there is any, if I'll give you the examples, or like the parties. Firstly is about the parties, as we dealt with, that parties can give this proceedings like A and B. I told you the signature is an admission. Another is the agents of the parties. What are the agents of the parties? Agents are like the lawyers, or like a legal representative. Like what happens is that once you are hiring any legal representative, he is speaking on your behalf. If something is said by the agent of the of like A and B, if A is a party, A is represented by X. If X says something, it will be considered to be admission of A, because X is legally representing A. So that's always said. No, are you when you ever see this term, it's always written that legal representative are representing. They have the authority to speak on behalf of their party. If X says that A has signed document, this means that A has signed the document. A cannot later say that no, I have not signed it. It will be considered to be an admission. All right, let's move forward with our next part, which is about the third parties, or like trustees or executors. You'll understand about trustees, executor when you're dealing with property laws, but just understand who are the trustees or executors. Or if you understand, not to give these example, then other can be representative character or the agents of the parties. Another example, a very good example, is of partners. Like if there is partners in a business, a very good example is partners in business. Why partners in business? Because if you see, partners are said to represent each other, A, B and C. All right, so what happens is that if there is a lawsuit, okay, if there is a lawsuit, if A, just check out the fact that if A has done certain deal, A has done deal with C for goods of 20,000 uh, rupees. If there is a deal of 20,000 rupees, all right, and this means the 20,000 rupees. Okay, but if the B is called upon, there is certain admission, any statement which is given by B, which is a partner. Partner of B means these people are doing partnership. They are in a partnership business, so they are legally representative of each other. If B comes and states that this deal is like a certain deal with Y. If B comes and tells that A's deal with Y was for 15,000 rupees. Okay, and Y statement is also okay, this deal was for 15,000 rupees. Then the statement of B will be considered to be admission. Alright, so these admissions can be given by the partners as well. Yes, it's easy. Let's move on to the third part. So these third parties should have a pecuniary or proprietary interest. As I told you, these people, the legal representatives, or as I told you, the example of the partners, these are pecuniary interest is there, or some proprietary interest is there, because these people are directly related with the part. They're directly related with the party of the lawsuit. And the why this whole, because there's a presumption in law that why these parties, because these have the direct interest in the whole lawsuit, why will B be speaking against A? If these parties are saying something, there's a inherent presumption that these the other agents or the legal representative are saying whatever they're saying is truth. Or if parties giving certain statement about himself, there is high probability this will be true. One major distinction which you need to understand, the next topic of ours is about, we have dealt with this, but let's discuss, we'll take summary again. Let's take one major important topic which I was telling you about, is self-serving and self-harming. Self-serving and self-harming. As such, there is no distinction in the definition as to admissions, as to what are self-serving and self-harming. What this major difference and the need to understand, because a lot of case laws are deal with these this whole concept, is that if A is a party, A and B, if A makes a statement, which is favorable to him, favorable, and one statement which is unfavorable, you yourself decide that whether the court will give more emphasis or will find it more conclusive and true favorable or unfavorable. If some, why would somebody will be giving an unfavorable statement about themselves? That is a whole question. If something is going against A, then it is considered to be a substantive evidence. The definition of admission as such is neutral and treats both self-serving as well as self-harming statement as admissible. But it is section 19. What does section 19 of BSA do, which makes a distinction and rule that only self-harming state admissions can be proved by a party, not self-serving admissions. If something which is favorable to a party, that is not considered to be that is not considered to be admission before the court. That is not considered to be admission. If something is favoring party A, what is considered to be what is unfavorable to the party is considered to be substantive evidence. Why this is applicable? Because if you see, if, as I told you about, the agents can also give certain, like third party or partners, or some third parties can also give admissions. If something is going in favor of the party who is accused, who is a defendant in that particular case, should that be given admissibility, because there is high probability of them being untrue. So only favorable statement, because this is also a presumption in the eyes of law. If you understand admissibility and relevancy of admissions, as I already we have already discussed, what are admissions admissible. Admissions are statements made by a party or related party. Related party also we have discussed about a relevant fact or in a legal proceeding that is often against their interest. If it is against their interest, then the court consider to be admissible, because once it is considered an admission by the court, the another party, the opposite party, would not require to prove it. That is the whole concept. Because otherwise there will be no end to the litigation. If something party, the ones who is accused or defendant, is saying something, the one party is saying something, should the legal burden be put on the another party also to prove it? No, it should not be, because there will be no end to litigation. That is our whole interest, that there should be end to the whole case, because it is the duty of the court to arrive at a conclusion. The law treat admission as specially trustworthy and valuable for these reasons. Against their own interest, firstly, if this question comes, because it's a very important question usually asked in exams as well. Firstly, what you should write is that this is people usually do not make state that harm their own legal unless they are true. That is first. Then it is waiver of proof. Admissions remove the need for the opposite party to formally prove that admitted fact. They are treated as some of the best and the most straightforward evidences. They are considered the best and the most forward evidences, as we discussed, because now the other party will not have the burden to prove it. That is the whole situation. Okay, now next one is about it simplifies the procedure as well. It saves time code by sparing unnecessary proof and streamlining judicial processes. This we have already discussed, who can make the admission, direct parties we have discussed, and the third parties as well. Third parties who have a pecuniary proprietary interest, who are like the third parties, as we have discussed it. Another major factor is section 21. Let's discuss. Admission is relevant and admissible only against the person making it, including their authorized agents or those in privity of interest. This basically means the general rule of admission is that it will be only against the person making it. Why? Because a statement against one's own interest is more likely to be genuine, but the opponent may have reason to say harmful things but about someone else. That is not reliable. What it means is that what it means is that it should be the admissions. If there is any admission, it can be used only against the party who is making them. Why? Because there is a huge probability, like if in this case A and B are in a dispute, A, X, Y are partners. A, X, Y are partners. If X is called something, called to say to court, called before court. X is called as witness before the court. If X says something which is unfavorable to B, unfavorable to B, and it is supporting A's claim, because these people are partners already, and if X is giving any statement which is turning to be unfavorable to B, should it be considered to be an admission? You think logically. Not. Should it be considered to be an admission? It should not be considered to be an admission, in because X is X is a partner of A. Why would he be saying something which is against A? He will obviously say something which is unfavorable to B. Can it be considered to be admissible? No. No is the answer. And an admission can only be used only for the A's claim. If A, just suppose if if this whole condition is reverse, if X B makes any statement, if X makes any statement which is unfavorable to A, then that will be considered to be admission, because since they are partners, they are related parties, and there is a huge inherent presumption that whatever X will be saying will be true if it is also going against A. This means that this whole general rule is getting fulfilled, that it is admissible only against the person making them. I hope you are able to understand this whole concept. I've explained it in a very easy way. This is a bit difficult concept. You can again rewind the videos, revise it again, refer to your books to understand this. I've explained with a lot of examples. I think you would be able to understand it. It can be used only against one's own interest, because they are more genuinely or more, can be more favorable. Okay, these exceptions to this rule can be during these such situations. We'll comprehensively deal with this, the reason and the objective during when we will be doing the dying declaration. But let's just have a perspective as to what it is about and have like a glance over it. First is, a maker is deceased or unavailable. If the original person who made the admission has died or cannot be found, the admission can still be used between third party in certain types of cases, because the one who had made an admission, like the one who had signed something or something, has died already, because that person will not be able to come back. Another can be state of mind, body, or condition. If a statement relates to the maker's own mental or physical condition at a relevant time, especially when paired with conduct, it may be admissible to prove that statement or condition. To check these exceptions, what if I just give example as to this exception, as to maker is deceased or unavailable, why the court allows these kind of exceptions? Because if you see, the maker is already dead now and he cannot be found. His admission can be still relevant between third party in certain cases, because usually what we see is that the admission is only relevant against the party making it, only against the party who is making it, because of the case. But if you see, A here in this case is deceased, and if A there is a letter which shows that A had written a letter to B and state that A has given his plot to he has sold, would use the word sold, so plot to Mr. Sharma. This is the whole scenario in this case. So this plot was sold to Mr. Sharma. If A's heirs, this is the example, if A's heir later says that this plot belongs to them, not to Sharma. Here, if AB can bring this whole letter and can show to the court that A had written, because A in this case is deceased, and this letter can be used by the Sharma to show that this admission was made by the person, admission made by the deceased is relevant in this case. Because admission, why? Because a disease is no longer available for the court to testify or to give any evidences, or to give any oral statement before the court. So this kind of evidence is also given. So this is also admissible in the court. Here, one more example which you will see will be about the dying declaration. We will cover it separately. Keep it a pending topic. We'll cover it later. And about a state of mind, body, or condition, physical thing. This whole scenario is about state of mind. If you see, if A is just from the continuation of an example, if A is a disease in this case, okay, I'm connecting both of these example. A went A along with B. So there is a doctor. A had testified. A before dying. A told doctor that he usually forgets things. And then the dispute is about a contract and by A's contract with someone. Then there is a certain dispute about this whole factor. All right. So, can this whole statement about this whole thing is about a state of mind or body, which was given by to a doctor. Can this whole statement is admissible? This is admissible. This can be admissible because it is showing certain state of mind and the body of the person who is in dispute. Even if he was not deceased, then also this kind of statement in which it is showing the state of mind or body. So this kind of statements are also admissible in the court. Let's move forward with our next topic about oral admissions. Oral admissions about certain things. So this topic is oral admission about documents. General rule says that oral evidences are not allowed to prove the contents of a document. What it means is that if this document is to be considered to be admissible, this is a contract, any document. The oral evidence, like A has done some contract with B, you cannot orally prove it. Oral evidence is inadmissible. Certain kind of a physical and documentary, like this is a documentary evidence. Documentary evidence is important because oral evidence is considered to have less reliability compared to a compared to a document. Because what the documents do, documents, if this is a properly sealed, this is properly signed document, proper affidavit is there, certain sort of affidavit or some signed document, these are considered to be highly reliable by court. All right. So, because these documents speak for themselves, you should write this word speak for themselves. This prevent the fabrication or ensure reliability. Exceptions, there's certain exceptions also because if you see, the whole duty of court is to do the justice to the parties. So, sometimes what happens, oral evidences, oral admissions of the contents are only relevant if oral admissions of a content of a document are only relevant if secondary evidence of the document is permitted by the act. So sometimes what happens is oral admissions are also considered relevant. This is up to the facts. One thing which you need to understand, every concept of evidences law is based upon the facts or exceptions. It's on the court. Court will decide it. Sometimes what happens is it can be shown that the primary evidence, like evidence, is now not available. So secondary evidences can also be used. Secondary evidences include one form of secondary evidence, oral evidences. Like if A and B has done certain contract, and this document is now the document of this contract is lost. But if B later says that B, if you take the example, it will state to you in a better way. Secondary evidence is like a photocopy or oral account is allowed. Like if you see if the original contract is missing but someone admits have signed it, then the admission is maybe used as evidence if secondary evidence is permitted. If the secondary evidence by the court is permitted, if A, there is a contract between them, but if and this is under dispute, but B later gives an admission that he signed it. If he signed it, this basically means that this proves that if there has been signature, this means sign kis pe hoga. One thing, sign will always happen on a contract itself. So there existed a contract. It's a form of inferences. Always understand inferences are very important, highly important for the evidence laws because you can you every time you cannot have primary evidences, some sort of secondary evidence in the sense like if something has been signed, if something is now someone is claiming something before the court, must be there has been certain kind of contract. And if there is also presumption, if you signed it, you must have read it also. Understood? Like the genuineness, if the genuineness of any document is questioned, certain genuine, that whether that property document or any other contract is genuine or not, if the authenticity of the document is challenged, oral admission can be used to give the clarity. Oral admissions, did you if this whole property transaction is under dispute, did you sign it? If that person said that yeah, yes, he signed, this means the document was true. So that's whole for this whole video, whereby we have done we have taken the understanding till the section number 22 of the admissions. In the next video we'll majorly be discussing the continuation part as to evidences, the relevancy of the admissions. We'll clearly understand in what scenarios electronic records are also admissible before the court, or evidentiary value of admissions, how relevant are they, what are the principle of estoppel. There are a lot of things to deal with this very important topic of evidence law. That's all for this whole video. Please like this video, subscribe the channel, and please do comment to me in case you have any query, you're not able to understand something, some part I was not able to explain that much in detail. You can comment to me. I will be really happy to answer all your questions. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Happy learning.